years. I've been
40
married
years.
20. I mean, I fell in love with a girl 40 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. You said some. I seen some of those pictures, man. I'm like, wow, that was It looked like that was the mid '80s. You
Yeah, I
had
met
like
her in
because
'85. Yeah,
you had the Jerry curl. You had the
I
Jerry curl
did.
going.
I did have a Jerry curl, boy. Come on, hey, but it wasn't like a ready. It wasn't like that puffy coming to America type Jerry curl. It was like this group called Ready for the World, right? They had a song, "Oh Sheila, Let Me Love You Down," and if you look,
Remember that old? Yeah.
you
Well,
remember
I
"Let Me Love
remember
You Down."
hearing it. I don't remember when it
Yeah,
came out, but I remember that just play
yeah.
at cookouts and
And
stuff.
then
Yeah.
they make remixes of it, kind of, right? Somebody else just made a remix of that song, "Let Me Love You Down," and kind of templed it up a little bit. But what I was gonna say, man, if you look at the Ice Cube's high school picture,
Yeah.
same curl, same deal with the collar flipped up, right? That's when you wore polo shirts, collar flipped up, and like a sweatshirt over the top of it.
Yeah.
Hey, that was classic. That was classic
Yeah,
85, 80.
there was a picture where you had like the collar, and I think you was laying on the floor, and your lady was yeah.
Yeah, yeah. In front of that, in the fire. My mother took that picture.
Okay,
That was in front of
okay.
our fireplace at home. But man, yeah, I used to have all kind of shirts like that, and then I had sweatshirts and stuff that were handmade. I used to get them made for me at this spot in San Leandro, uh, across from Bay Fremont, and all of my shirts that said J Love stitched right here, and then I had a Playboy bunny on the back with a fedora hat on. I
Why you
that,
ain't like your own clothing line?
no, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just sticking with what my lane, man. My little Blackmore lane. What I'm doing, and just
Yeah,
keep it pushing. I
yeah,
do, but hell, I want to just support actively black. Have you heard that? Have you seen that black owned
yeah,
line?
yeah. I actually seen the CEO in person. He came to Afrotech, and one of my friends had like a good combo with him, but he was like passing through, and I seen him.
He already doing everything that I would have wanted to do anyway. So somebody
Yeah,
else already got it out there. Like right
yeah.
now, you can go to that line and all like the black people in Star Wars and stuff that they not really promoting and stuff. You can get them from Actively Black, so you can get Lando Calrissian shirts and stuff like that all through Star
Mm,
Wars. But they partnered, so they do a lot of partnerships.
yeah, yeah.
So it's fantastic, man. They got partnerships with HBCUs. They got it with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know like too much about the fashion business, but I'm noticing you're having a lot of like startup brands or new brands partnering with
Mm,
more established brands. Like I remember I think it was Gucci partnered with North Face, and they did something together.
mm.
Earn Your Leisure partnered with I can't think of her name, but she's from Philly, and she makes these hoodies with satin inner lining for
Oh
hair,
yeah, yeah, for
because
your hair.
cotton. Yeah, and
Yeah.
they did a collaboration together. So that seems to be the new thing. I remember they got on my radar Actively Black when they did a partnership, or Allen Iverson was in one of their
Yeah.
promotions. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And
Yeah.
then they got a partnership right now with black farmers, right?
Mm,
So you
mm,
can get it's all black owned cotton that is made for the clothing and stuff like that. It's
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's what you call like vertical integration, but it's
Hmm.
more like their ideology is vertically integrated in everything they're doing.
Right. Everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it looked good. It's not no half, you know what I mean? I don't say half half, but you know what I mean. It,
Mhm.
it's quality uh material and quality clothing and stuff like that. So I love that.
Right, and I'm sure we can definitely touch on it. But like one thing I noticed is like just because something's good doesn't mean people want to do it. You got to have some type of coolness to it, or it has to like look good for people to really want to jump on it, right? Like, why did, people smoke cigarettes, right? Like they saw the cowboys smoking it, you know what I'm saying? In the commercials. They weren't the
Right, right.
original cowboys, but I'm
No,
sure
they
a
want the
lot.
original guy.
Yeah, yeah. I later learned about that. Um, but yeah, so let's get into it. So what's up, world? My name is Corey Stay Trapping with Trap Talks, where we discuss the intersection of culture and tech. And today I have the honor of interviewing an old colleague of mine, OJ. K Johnson, the Black Moore. We used to work together at Yelp, right? So just to give you all a background story. When I was at Yelp, that was my first job after moving to the West Coast from North Carolina. And I remember OJ came on. He was one of the few Black people there, So growing up in the city that was like half Black, moving out west. By the time I got out west, it was a lot different from when you grew up, right? And so OJ was one of the people that I just reached out to. We kept in contact over the years. And just to give you a little bit of rundown on his background, historian, particularly around African history or the African diaspora, however you want to describe it. Former, I'm looking here to LinkedIn, telecommunications manager trainer at various financial institutions, and recently was a account executive, senior elite account director at Yelp. And just to give y'all more context, Yelp was a really hard place to work at, um, but it was definitely a place where I cut my teeth at, and it's one of those. You think about Boiler Room. Did you ever see that movie Boiler Room?
Love that movie.
So I never watched the whole movie, but there was one scene that used to go around YouTube, and it probably still on YouTube. That main scene is like what life was on the floor,
Right,
at Yelp.
right.
So
When Vin Diesel's on the phone trying to
yeah,
close the deal and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And one call closes. I've had a few.
yeah.
Yeah, I ironically miss certain days around about Yelp. It was a tough time, but it was definitely a time where I really cut my teeth. And it's funny because that's where I learned that I was really good at selling to older women. Like I looked through my list of one deal, and most of my deals were like older
That talk
women.
game.
I don't know, man. Maybe it was because I grew up, with my mom. So, I guess having more of affinity to feminine energy. I don't know, but yeah, that I guess you could say that talk game. But yeah, so the founder of Black More. So did I miss anything? Anything you want to
Nah,
add to the
man,
intro?
you're right on. I've been in sales and management and training for over 30 years of my life. Honestly, I'll tell you this. I tell people all the time: if you really want to get into management, you want to get upward mobility in your job. Make sure that you're the hardest worker there. Make sure that
Yeah,
you don't have people outwork you, right? And
yeah,
even if you don't have the best results, put in everything that you had. It's a pattern that I started when I was like 16 years old. I swear to God, I became a manager at 16 years old of Wendy's hamburgers. And at
wow,
16, I worked there for 30 days, busted my butt, right? Did everything. And my key phrase was, "Hey, I finished the last project you gave me. Give me something else to do. I don't want to be bored. I don't want to stand around."
mm,
I did that for 30 days, and they literally came back to me and said, "Hey, we want you to train everybody how to work like you work." And so now all of a sudden I took off the funky little Wendy's uniform, and they had little striped shirts with a page boy, painter hat type deal back then. Took that off, got a shirt, got a tie on or whatever. I'm 16 years old and I'm managing people from age 16 up to, in their 70s because we had retired veterans that would
yeah,
be greeters and open the doors and stuff like that for us.
yeah,
And that opened my eyes. And then from there, again, that got me into management. So the
yeah,
next job, I was a manager. I said, I want to get out of fast food. I want to get into clothing. So then
yeah,
I became a manager of a clothing store.
yeah,
But did that, through my mid. So yeah, training, management, help people. That's what I do, man. And then just my love for Black people. So
yeah,
when it comes to Yelp, man, anybody that was Black, if you came in front of me, I had to come meet you. I'm gonna talk to you, help you, see what we can do to help, get some more money in your pocket.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then I ran the diversity and inclusion department for Yelp as Yale. I was on the steering committee, one of like 3 or 4 people up there that ran that whole, what they call it,
steering committee.
not, yes, well, steering committee, but employee resource group.
Yeah,
They call it.
ERG. Yeah,
Yeah,
ERG.
yeah, that's what they call it. So yeah,
Mhm.
so I just love dealing with Black people, man. All people, but my passion is us.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I kind of want to go deeper into that. So how do you motivate people and or manage people who have on the surface nothing in common with you? Like you 16 and you have someone who was a veteran. They probably at that time had been in World War I, at least
Hmm.
maybe two. Like
Hmm.
how you as a 16-year-old, find some commonality and how do you gain their respect?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I wasn't really trying to do all that with the veterans. I just want to make their life easier. Like I
Okay.
never had none of my veterans was doing a bunch of hard work. I never had them take out the garbage. I had some that said, "No, I'll do it, no problem. I'm still good. I'm young. I'm strong. And let them do the thing." But most of the time, man, I just had them greeting people. Hey, how are you? And wiping down tables or something like that. When it came to the veterans and stuff like that, man, you lived your life. Look, I want to make it as easy for you as possible. Now, the rest of them, the 16 to 20-year-olds that I was working with though in fast food, no, that was a different. No, you got to
Yeah.
grind. You know what I mean? You got
Yeah.
to grind, and I just have always been like that.
Yeah.
And I want to motivate people to really my motivation was to always uplift people. That's what I
Mhm.
do, man. I
Mhm.
uplift and motivate people. And so I always want to be able to promote people, give them more money, give them raises, promotions. But in order to do that, I got to be able to say you do this. Check off the list. You met all this, and this is why you deserve the extra money. Now, you also deal with some of those people, and even at Yelp, the people that just come in, want to collect the check and don't want to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't do anything about that. If you're not motivated to come in and want to be your best self and give all, it is what it is. You're gonna stay stagnant or you won't be here too long.
Yeah. 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 Um, so there's a question, and I was gonna wait till later, but it's top of
Yeah, hit me.
mind. I love history. The thing I like about history is that if you break it down, I guess into kind of two words or whatever, right? His story, right? Or her
Mhm.
story.
Mhm.
And then one of the things I like about history personally is that everything has a story behind it, right? That's the thing I like about history is that it's very much so. I don't know if interdisciplinary is the right word, right? Where like everything has a history behind it. And tell us about that incident that happened early in your life where you was like, you know what, I'm really gonna go in on history, particularly African history. And what made you go down that path? Like what drove? Talk to us about what drove that
Yeah.
for your
Yeah.
love for.
So, kind of my love comes from I'm gonna call it necessity. So my family, when I was a kid, we moved from a predominantly, black area in Oakland, California, to a predominantly white area in the Bay Area in Fremont, California. And as a child growing up in this white world, right? I made my parents cry one time because I told them, "Is the whole world white? Is Oakland, California? Is that a different planet?" I'm like
Yeah,
second grade, and they're like, "What the hell did we do to this kid?" You know what I mean? But it came out of necessity, man. And we talked about it kind of earlier. But I grew up again in elementary school, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade, having teachers, and again, not all teachers, but teachers, clergy people, the people from my church, Sunday school teachers, and again, not all, but too many, have told me as a young kid, you should be thankful for slavery. You should be thankful that the white man came and got you and took you out of Africa and brought you here. Because look at all the nice clothes you have now, OJ. Look at the nice food you eat now. If you were still in Africa, what would you see? And again, at the time, all you seen is hungry kids, no shoes, people living in huts, flies on their eyes, starving, needing donations for food, stuff like that. And they're like, listen, that's why slavery helped your people. And I knew that that was not true, right? My family, was very Afrocentric, I guess you would say. So I grew up with all kind of African historian, posters on the living room walls and stuff like that. And so I knew what they were telling me was not true, but I didn't have the intellect to argue with them. I didn't know how to argue. Right. I used to get in fight. I remember getting in a fight with a guy in Boy Scouts because he just straight up told me, shut the hell up. My grandfather owned your grandfather. So you can't say shit. I was like, I don't know what to say, but I'm gonna pop you anyway.
yeah, yeah,
I didn't know how to intellectually how to argue that, what happened, right? So that sent me on my path to learning real history, the truth, not his story, but the true story. And with that, let me give you an example, right? Because I love Moorish history. I talk about the Moors. People, they teach you, well, at least they did in my time, about Christopher Columbus, right? This is when he still had Columbus Day. right? And he sailed the ocean blue in 1492. I remember having to memorize this kind of garbage, right? That's what we learned about Columbus so-called discovering America. We should appreciate, Columbus. They don't tell you that he was raping people, brought back slaves, cutting people's nose off for gold. Oh, they don't tell you that. They also don't tell you is what was so important about the year 1492? Why wasn't it 1892? Why wasn't it 1792? Right? Excuse me, 1392 or 1292. Why? What made 1492 so important? The reason is 1492 was the actual last year when the Moors were finally kicked out of Spain. So from the year 711, and you can Google this, you can look this up. They won't tell you it's a black man, but they'll tell you he was Islamic, right? He was Muslim. That's his religion, not his race. But there's a black man by the name of Tariq in 711 crossed over from North Africa into Spain. Actually, it's called Andalusia at the time. And he beat this white guy by the name of King Roderick of the Visigoths, right? King Roderick had raped this other guy's daughter. And this other guy was like, look, he's out of town. I want you, basically, you come with your boys, you can take over this whole area. And that's what Tariq did. Came over and started a Moorish domination from 711 to 1492. Now, here's another little fast track that you can take and look up as well. Because of Trump, we're all talking about tariffs, right? Tariffs. Did you know, or did any of your audience know that the word tariff, that's actually named after a black man?
I didn't know.
You can look it up. And what it was is it was a black Moor. Before Tariq went over, he sent one of his people, Tariq, over to Spain. And then they started having these blockades, and you had to pay taxes to come through the ports and stuff like that. You had to pay a tariff. This was named after a black man. So these Moors from 711 to 1492 brought higher intellect into Europe, religion into Europe, agriculture into Europe, architecture into Europe, and they literally helped bring Europe out of the Dark Ages, right? And usher in what is now called the Renaissance era. People don't know this. Listen, and I'm just going to be playing with y'all. People don't know some of the stuff that the Moors had taught Europeans. These are black people that saved Europe. Did you know that Europeans didn't even use soap at the time?
I didn't know that, but I do remember hearing that they brought cleanliness because that was this
hygiene.
Hygiene.
Proper hygiene. Listen, Europeans did not know how to bathe themselves. They didn't want to. They thought it was like a curse. So they might take a bath once a year, maybe, right? They slept in barns with their animals. This gives you all kinds of diseases and stuff that spread. All this unhealthy. They didn't know any of that until the black Moors came and taught them. When Europe had no universities, Moorish countries or areas already had hundreds of universities in North Africa. Again, you've heard of the Timbuktu. One of the ancient universities in North Africa. This is before Europe didn't have any of this stuff.
That was modern day Mali, right?
Yeah. So that Mali and then Songhay, that whole area, right? But I'm always told that, hey, black people never had any history, right? Black people, we weren't educated until the white man came and had to educate us. The white man had to teach us about God. All of this is lies. Most people don't even know. Listen, did you know that Christianity was in Africa way before it was in Europe?
The Ethiopians, right?
Absolutely. But most people don't know that, right? Africa brought Christianity to Europe. But the way they tell his story, you would think that Europe brought Christianity to Africa.
And
that ain't so.
I can't remember where I heard it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but the first, what you call them? Islamic, not Islamic, the first Islamic Sunni, I think that's what you call them, Sufi, came out of Africa. Is that their name, Sufi?
Sunni.
Okay.
So that's the split between, and again, I'm not an expert on this, but it's the split on the Islamic religion. So when Muhammad died, right? You had, I think it was his daughter-in-law's father or somebody who wanted to take the throne, and then somebody on his side that wanted to take the throne. And that is where you literally have the Shiite or Sunni Muslim split. Right. That's where those two branches come from. And then Muhammad's first convert was a black man. I can't remember. I don't remember his name, but he was one of the first converts of Muhammad. And his name, hold on. I don't know. I gotta look it. Anyway, you can look it up. You can look it up. Most people don't know any of this stuff because, again, since the 1600s, right, there's been this wave of really trying to in order to justify the slave trade, they had to make black people be inhumane. Like we had no history, we have no humanity, right? They had to paint that picture, but in reality, none of that shit is true. None of that is true. Couldn't be further from the truth. And so now when somebody come at me with that blame, I'm like, listen, y'all, you can't tell me nothing. You can't tell me anything about some European trying to come to Africa and teach us nothing, right? Because from the beginning, Europeans have come to Africa as students, not as conquerors, not as educators, but as students, right? So if you do your history and you look into the so-called Greek philosophy, right? They even wrote those first philosophers, Homer, the first writers, the father of modern history, right? All say that they went to Africa to learn. And when they went to Africa and they seen that these Egyptians, right? They called Egyptians, they looked just as black as any other Africans. Yeah. This is what they wrote in their own words. So you can't tell me that they couldn't see what the skin color or the hair texture of these people were that they were dealing with when they're right there in front of their eyes. So you have to ignore the history of Herodotus. You can go look up Herodotus right now. You can Google him, Herodotus. They call him the father of history. He's a white man who learned from the philosophers in Africa, right? Plato, Aristotle, all of those. This book, I did bring some books I want to share with y'all, just a few. This is a great book that talks about, I don't know if you can see this. This is a legendary book called Stolen Legacy. Now, the print is not going to be like this anymore, this cover, because this is like 40 years old. And it's by George G.M. James. Fantastic, legendary book. Pick this up. It literally will teach you that all that Greek philosophy, that's just regurgitated black history, black philosophy. Right? Don't even get me started about the 10 Commandments. That's the same thing. Right? Did you know the 10 Commandments is really part of 40, I think it's 44
42
commandments?
Ma'at
42,
laws.
yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yes.
Yeah, Ma'at,
yes.
Documents in, decisions out. Go to doculingo.com/TrapTalks2040 to get your 14-day free trial. And don't forget to sign up for our Patreon page. We out.
You can see all the 10 plus 30 some odd more that were there thousands of years before so-called Moses. People don't know that. I can get deep into that too. Moses, and he wasn't the one who brought monotheism to the world. They give him credit with that, but he was the one who brought the one true God and Almighty God. That ain't true. Moses was a black man who studied in the temples of Kemet for years, learning the ancient mystery systems, right? He went there to learn, and already like 1,500 years before him, there was a black man by the name of Akhenaten. He originally was, I think, Amenhotep IV, but he changed his name to Akhenaten, right? He was the one who brought you the philosophy of monotheism. It was because of him first. And it's written down. And you can go look this kind of stuff up.
What is monotheism? I know
monotheism is like the belief in like one God, one true
Okay.
God, not multiple God, it's the one creator of all gods. And so this is something that Akhenaten broke with during the 18th dynasty, 18th Egyptian dynasty. It's called the New Kingdom, right? The reason I love that kingdom is this is when they kicked out the white invaders. So when you talk about, there were some invaders, any of these times when you had white invaders or Arab invaders into Egypt, or Kemet, right? This is a time of downfall, a time of disruption. They never brought any positivity or anything to the land. They always just took. But then you have black people who want to then take back the land, Kemet, the land of blacks. That's what Kemet means. The land of blacks, black people land. That's what Kemet means. They come back and they want to swoop down and they want to kick all these people out. And you got to remember, the Nile does not run from the Mediterranean down to Central Africa. Please listen, this is a crucial fact that if you want to learn about African history, Egyptian history, Kemetic history, this is a crucial just concept that you got to understand. The Nile River is over 4,100 miles long. It's the longest river on earth. But it does not run from Europe area, from the Mediterranean down to Central Africa like it looks like it. It actually, Central Africa is the mountainside. It's the highland. So Egypt has always been two Egypts. It's called Upper and Lower Egypt. Upper Egypt is in the heartland of Africa. This is where Egyptian history, everything starts. And it flows down 4,100 miles to the north and lets out in the Mediterranean Sea. So you have these pharaohs that are in the heart of Africa that come back, we're taking all the land back. And they kick all these people out. And that is the glory of the 18th dynasty. It's called the New Dynasty. So the 18th, 19th, this is where you find King Tut. He was after Akhenaten. He was Akhenaten's, I think, like his son-in-law. It wasn't actually his son, because King Tut came through the throne through, like, I think a wife or a woman or something like that. I can't remember exactly. And he was super young, but it was Akhenaten beforehand. All this, the 18th dynasty, the 19th dynasty, you'll see that. And then you'll see another dynasty that comes back in the 25th dynasty, that's the only dynasty that they will adamantly tell you, okay, that's a Nubian. They call it sub-Saharan African. Like Africans never did anything. But listen, we were masters of sub-Saharan. I know it might have been a problem for Europeans to deal with, but it wasn't a problem for Africans to deal with.
Yeah.
We had been dealing with it for thousands of years when it was plush, and as it turned to desert over millenniums. We already know all that stuff. So that was from Central Africa down to the Mediterranean. And that's the way the history, the concepts flows. But they try to make you think that it comes from Europe and influenced Egypt. That's BS. That's garbage.
So
but you'll never see it on TV.
So I want to ask you, what prompted, you said the 18th dynasty was like the new dynasty. What prompted Anunnaki to want to essentially kind of consolidate the idea around God? The fact that
No, that's a great question, because it was somewhere out of the blue, right? It was out of the blue. His wife, you heard of it? You seen his wife Nefertiti, right?
I've heard of Nefertiti.
Maybe by the little charms of her. That's the wife, right? I don't know what made him do that, to be honest with you, but I know that they hated him for it.
Yeah, because didn't they erase him from the history?
They tried to.
Yeah, okay.
For many years, right? And then when they kind of took back over after King Tut, because he was young, right? And then they tried to bring in some other people. And then again, you always see in up and down invasions and non-invasions and stuff like that in Egypt, Egyptian history. So after the 20th, I think the first dynasty is another interlude where it was invaders that came in. And they didn't get kicked out again until the 25th.
So what did the Egyptians actually call themselves?
They called a lot of different names, because it wasn't really Egypt. That's a European
place.
Name.
That's a place, yeah.
Well, it's a European word, and what Egypt came from is the first Europeans seen one city that they called Egyptus. Then they started to call just the one little city in the Mediterranean area. They called it was Egyptus that they called it, and then that became for the whole land. They started after years and years of just blaming the whole, or calling the whole land Egypt. But we call the land Kemet, the city of Sais. There's a few other names as well in the regions, but these are all African names. Now, let me tell you this, 2 great books again. You can read all about this if you check out and you YouTube this guy. He's got fantastic YouTube videos. Dr. Ben, or they call him Dr. Yosef A.A. Ben Yakimin. Right, he's got masterful books that I keep. These are my lecture books or textbooks that I've been using for over 40 years. One is this one. Let's see if we can get it here. Hold on, this one.
Okay, yeah.
Africa's, right? This is the mother of Western civilization. Fantastic book. This one right here is when I get a lot of Egyptian stuff on right here is Black Man of the Nile and his family. This is a great book. And you can see he's demonstrating the Nile. So again, it doesn't run from here down. The water runs from here up. That's the way it goes. And then this other book, same by Professor Dr. Ben, African Origins of Western religions. So again, we can get deep on that. That's a whole nother thing. We can talk about Judaism, Christianity, Islam, the influences of all of that. Dr. Ben talks about all those in those great books.
Interesting.
Highly
Yeah.
recommend. Right. One other book. Let me just give you this other one too. I highly
Hey,
recommend this.
keep
Yeah.
throwing those books out because I'm definitely going to put them on my list to read.
I'm gonna get you. Listen, I got so many, but I brought a few just because they mean so much to me. But this book, listen, I took an ancient African history class in college, right, recently. And the books that he's required reading, these are books I've had for 30, 40 years and have highlighted stuff in it that I've been waiting to ask at a collegiate level some of these questions to a professor, right? I already have these books. This book right here is one of the ones that is our textbook, and it's The Destruction of Black Civilization. You gotta get this book. You gotta, anybody, if you're really interested in African history, Egyptian history, how did Egypt turn from black to brown to white? It's detailed. It's detailed. I mean, it's so deep. One of the chapters, and we wrote about this, I wrote a whole paper on this. The chapter is literally called, let me get it right. Chapter 2 is called Ethiopia's Oldest Daughter, Egypt. That's how you got to think, right? Egypt is Ethiopia's oldest daughter because, again, it comes from the heartland, the center of Africa, and got pushed down, like the soil and everything else, down to the north. And that's when, after millennium, and hundreds of years after that is when, how Egypt really got formed. And then, the dynasties and stuff like that. But listen, Egypt was even there before the first dynastic period. People, you got to understand that too. Listen, there was already, reportedly, they had wrote that there was already 100 kings prior to the first dynastic period. Right? The first dynastic period is only the first dynastic period because, again, we talked about those Greeks and white folks and Europeans that came over and wanted to learn. Well, when Alexander the Great came over and conquered and what have you, that's when he brought these philosophers with him as well. And they commissioned a biracial man, black man, but he was biracial, named Manetho. And you can look up, we still use his breakdown of the dynasties to this day. He was an Egyptian priest. Right. And so he broke down the dynasties into 30 dynasties, 30 different family lines and what have you. And we still use that today. But even before the first dynasty, which was a black man by the name of Namar, or they call him Aha, the Europeans call him Menes, Menes, Menes or Menace. Right. But that's the European name. But this is a black man. There was already 100 kings in Egypt. In Lower, before he even started the first dynastic period. And again, that first dynastic period was about a black man coming in and saying, listen, I'm cleaning house. I'm taking control over the whole river. That's what it was about. You can look at pictures and statues of this man, big nose, big lips. He was phenotypically black or phenotypically African.
Phenotype, yeah.
Right. But when the Europeans write about it, they still try to tell you, oh, no, it was a white man. No, it wasn't. They try to tell you, oh, well, look at Egypt now. It was a melting pot. It was all them Arabs that are in Egypt now, they did not get there prior to the flight of Muhammad. Okay, let me repeat that. They did not get there before the flight of Muhammad.
And when you say Muhammad, you mean the prophet of Islam?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that's when it spread through North Africa. Prior to that, they wasn't ruling shit in there.
So I got to ask you, because I started a few, not even gonna say a few years, well over 10 years ago, there was a psychic by the name of, he would go into sleep trance. You know what I'm talking about? And he would make all these predictions.
Oh, no.
Gosh, I can't think of his name, but he talked about Atlantis. or whatever. Are you familiar with Atlantis?
Hmm. Not the true history. No, the
Yeah.
myth,
Yeah, the myth. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
myth of Atlantis. Yeah. Are you talking
And
about the ancient? You talking about the ancient guy who made the predictions, or are you
he,
talking about somebody current?
he gosh, what's his name? I'm about to search his name, but
Because
basically
Nostradamus made a lot of
he was before
predictions
Notre.
about the
Well, he was
future.
after Notre Dame.
Okay,
This guy's like modern.
okay. That's
He
why I
was
didn't
a
know you talking
he
about
was
modern time or ancient time.
yeah, he was a psychic, and he would make predictions in his sleep.
Really?
Yeah, and
Anything
that
come true?
mhm. Yeah, so during, I think it was World War One or two, a lot of gosh, they have a museum that holds all of his predictions, right? So he ended up dying because his doctor told him that he needed to stop making predictions. And so I think it was during World War One or World War Two, family
Hmm.
members of the soldiers in the American War would go to him and say, "Hey, let me know about my loved one," and that drained a lot of energy out of him.
Wow.
Gosh, what was his name? It's like on the tip of my tongue.
I hate when that
During
happens.
Yeah, but he talked about Atlantis, and he said that Edgar Casey, that's his name, Edgar Casey. You should really look him up.
Mm,
That's when I heard about Edgar Casey and he talked about Atlantis, and he actually made a prediction that we would start to see remnants of it in the Caribbean, and probably about 40 or 50 years after he died, we started seeing looks like remnants of a road. And some of the maps, some of the ancient maps, they actually have Atlantis like in the middle of Pangea, or where Pangea
really?
basically would have been. But really interesting. And me personally, I actually think they were African. And the Egyptians actually have historical notes of Atlantis, because it was a Greek philosopher that went there, and then one of them was like, yeah, Atlantis really existed or whatever. Because that got taken down by a flood, as far as the myth.
Yeah. Because the city said that the city was taken out by a big, I don't know if it was a monster, not a tsunami or what, but it flooded, right? And the whole thing was lost, according to
Yeah,
the myth.
yeah, yeah,
But
and
again, if that happened, they probably was black.
that was yeah. I mean, that's what life does.
Because all of that, again, if you think about it this way, right? And this we know for a fact now, right? That all humanity started in Africa,
Hmm.
right? The black woman is the only species on this planet that has a capability of producing every skin tone of human beings, right? From blue black to Casper white. I remember doing this as a kid, thinking about this and stuff. You can take two black people and make lighter skin white people, but you can't take two white people and then make a chocolate black person. You got to have some chocolate black integrated in there somewhere,
Yeah,
right? In order to
yeah.
have it, because that white is a recessive gene, right? Our melanin black, that's a dominant gene.
Hmm.
And so when you look at the humanity starts in Africa, and I always tell people this, go look at any modern history book dealing with civilization. First chapter, they got to come, when it comes to human beings, they got to come to Africa.
Yeah.
So always just sit back and wait. You
And
can,
me personally, I actually believe that life started in or near around Sudan, but just because of where it's located, right? It's like you think
absolutely.
about it, it has, I believe it's the place on earth that has the most direct sunlight, right?
Hmm.
So it's like, I feel like it kind of had to start there.
I think that whole Sudan area, and then a little even further down south, even more what do you call like Central Africa, um, like where you get to the beginning of the Nile River, right?
So you talking about like Kenya?
Yeah, all them little areas. First off, where are the oldest bones? Okay, they can have the stories, what you want to play around and steal stories, but when it comes to the actual evidence, where are the oldest human bones found? Found in Africa, found in that Kenya area, in the Tanzania area. What's it? I can't remember that. It's a gorge. They found they call it Lucy. You can look it
Yeah,
up,
Lucy. Yeah, Lucy. Yeah, I've heard of Lucy. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
They don't have, this is where the development, where humans started from and all this stuff. Again, which then tells you that the Garden of Eden was in Africa, right? Listen, let me tell you this. This is probably going to piss off a lot of people, but let me tell you, the only white people in the Bible are them Roman soldiers that crucified Jesus. Let me say it again for the people in the back. Only white people in the Bible are those white Roman soldiers that crucified Jesus. Everybody else, people of color. That's a fact. Look it up. I'm just telling.
And he was black too when they described his feature. Like they said in the Bible says
Revelations.
he had wool.
Revelations. It says right there. So
Yeah.
again, I talk to all these evangelical, conservative Trump Christians all the time. I said, but let's look at the facts. What does the Bible tell you? What does the Bible tell you? It says in Revelations, he had skin of bronze, hair of wool.
Hair of wool.
I ain't never seen no long-haired sheep. This curly, kinky sheep. Said he had eyes blazing red. That tells me the brother had hay fever. He had allergies. I'm just telling you, it's in the Bible.
Yeah.
But that's not, again, that's one of those things as a kid. It says that clearly in the Bible, but how come that's not depicted in our churches? Right? These people, I was driving these people crazy in this white church when I'm 9, 10 years old. Literally saying, listen, you're telling me that if I confess my sins, if I embrace Jesus Christ, if I take him in my heart, I'll go to heaven when I die and I'll be with the kingdom of the Lord. Well, let me ask you, how come there's no minority angels on any of these stained windows on this church? They're only white cherubs, white people. I look at this, they had a big, huge Bible at the front of like where they, gave the sermons or what have you, lined in like gold and stuff. Like you flip over the pad, all kind of pictures and stuff in it. Nothing but white people. I said, wait a minute, where are the black people? Listen, and that was driving them crazy because they're like, why is this kid? Why does it matter? That was the other thing. It shouldn't matter. Jesus is in your heart. Okay. Well, if it don't matter, why don't you put up a black Jesus with dreadlocks or black Jesus with an afro? If it don't matter, right? If it don't matter, let me see you bow down to a black Jesus. And I say that to my evangelical Christians right now. You say you believe the Bible, you trust the word of the Bible, the way it's written, that's written by God, except for the parts when they talk about black people, you don't want to bring that out. In slave days, they would even hide certain passages from the slaves. They didn't want them to know them about the real Bible. They didn't want to know about the color of the people. They didn't want to let them know about resistance to the slave master. No. They included the parts that said, obey your master. That's the kind of shit that they gave us. And they cut out certain sections of the Bible so that we didn't know the truth and we wouldn't be inspired. And we still got some people today that ain't inspired and don't know the truth and still worship a white Jesus. I don't know why, but
yeah. So what's your favorite era of like African history? Is it the Egyptians? Is it Timbuktu, Kingdom of Mali, like the Ashanti Empire? Like
that's hard for me. I don't know. If
Zulu.
Yeah, I love all of it, man. I love all of it, and I guess what I really love most though is proving black people is educating Europe. Black people is bringing knowledge and higher education and knowledge, philosophy and astronomy, astrology, all this stuff to Europeans. When I was always told, no, black people ain't intelligent. We're the dumbest people on the planet. We were made to be slaves. They try to bring in religion, and we were cursed. The curse of Ham, right? I was told that in church. The curse of Ham, because Ham's son saw Noah naked. God came down and cursed all of his children, and now his children say that you're supposed to be slaves.
In the story of Cain too, I heard that was used too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And so they try to make up all this stuff, man. So, I mean, my thing is, again, the Moors who brought that to Europe, again, education, all the stuff we just talked about. Prior to that, though, again, you still had the Carthaginians, Hannibal, right?
Yeah.
Great Hannibal.
He was.
We
a
have
beast.
all this. We're bringing this rich history to Europe, but they want to deny it, say like it never happened.
Yeah,
right?
and
this is why. Listen, let me tell you this: people will be pissed off when they find out that, first off, the white race. There's no such thing as a white race. There's no such
thing as race. Period. Yeah.
Period. We all shades of brown, baby. We all shades of brown. But because they created race to justify, the slave trade and stuff like that, they never go back and really want to show you the true history of what's going on. Right? Now, when you look at the times of the Romans and this and that, there was no unified white race. There was no such thing as really like a white, unified white race. They didn't even think of themselves as white. People who consider themselves white now, even 200 years ago, wasn't white. When the first Spanish came over here, they weren't considered white. Italians weren't considered white. Sicilians, right? Southern Italy.
I mean, because Hannibal, he took over. I don't know if he took over what's today would be Italy or Sicily, but from what I heard, that the women there really loved them. So it's like a lot of the Italians, the Sicilians down the line, because if you look at some of their features, they have kind of like fat noses and stuff
Yep.
like that too.
Yep.
And their
Absolutely.
skin is very much so like olive, right? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And so not only when you're talking about Hannibal with the Punic War, even his father, Hamilcar, was battling with them prior. But this is when Carthage ruled the seas. This is before the real Rome blew up, right? So prior to now, you'll see all the gladiator movies. They talk about the Carthaginians, right? They talk about the Punic Wars and how they beat us. But prior to that, you had black people that was all over in Italy, Sicily, right? And making babies. Where do sailors go and conquerors go? They don't bring their wives with them. They go to these foreign lands and they make babies. And so again, that's why you have stories about the dark Italians, dark Spanish. Well, this is why, again, 100 years ago, you had somebody who was German, right? Who would look at somebody who was Spanish, you call them some derogatory word. You ain't white, you ain't Aryan, right? It's all flipped now.
Yeah.
But this is all new. This is all to kind of just,
Yeah.
you know?
And Hannibal, he terrorized Rome. I think he was beating them for like 20 years, but then something happened where he lost or something like that. And then from what I read, they took all the male babies.
Yeah, they okay. So then when they wanted after to kill, they did a lot of treacherous shit, right? But Hannibal was kicking. First, his dad was, and then Hannibal, who was young, he was like 20-something years old. He went from North Africa, crossed over the Mediterranean through southern France, went over the Alps with elephants, with war elephants in the snow, right? Marched down and was kicking the Romans' ass, was kicking the ass. Now, how he lost is he had another white guy who later they called Africanus, Scipio Africanus. What he did is he's like, we can't keep beating these Carthaginians straight up. We can't beat them. So what he did is he then went from Europe to Africa and cut off the supply lines, because there were supply lines from North Africa going up, crossing over, the little gap there between North Africa and Spain, and then working their way over through the Alps. And they had supply lines for food and all the stuff. But when that got cut off, they basically starved them and just waited for it. Like, you can't go on forever. And then that's when Hannibal left. They had to kind of reject the whole campaign. That's when they kind of lost. And then from there, it became an obsession with Rome to defeat Carthage. Listen, there's YouTube videos on this. There's this where the Romans would get up in the morning. Hey, good morning, Roman soldier. Hey, good morning, Roman, my Roman sir. Good morning. Yes, Carthage must die. Yes, Carthage must die. They would say stuff like that in their comments in the mornings, the afternoons, at the night with that same saying. And there was 3 Punic Wars. The first one, Hannibal's father was involved with. The second one, Hannibal was involved with. And then the third one was really much just not much of a fight. It was just already a massacre, pretty much. And they just burned down the city of Carthage. But again, all of this you can look up.
So what do you think they did with the male babies? Do you think they enslaved them? Do you think they just killed them? Because it's never really, quote unquote, known what happened to them.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I would think that they probably did a combination of both. Because that wouldn't be uncommon for that time, right? For them to do a little bit, a combination of both, or raise them to be freaking eunuchs and stuff like that. You ever hear about that? You know what that is? Eunuchs?
Isn't that when they cut off the testicles?
Yes.
I know the early Arabs used to do that.
Yes.
They actually went to Africa, and so that they wouldn't. It was a big fear, which is kind of ironic because you see it you see that being one of the biggest fears in American slavery is the slaves sleeping with the slave owners female relatives, right? The daughter, the wife and stuff. But they would, I remember hearing about it. I heard about it first from the Muslims, where they were the first ones to quote unquote enslave Africans, but
Mm-hmm.
they would castrate them so that they
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have any sexual.
Well, because again, they were big on harems, right? So these Muslims would have they would take all these women, right, and they would have all these women for sex, is what they were, and then they would have these men to be like their guards, so nobody could harm or whatever. But to make sure that they couldn't have any sexual drive towards them, they castrated them.
Mhm.
That is horrible, horrible.
Yeah.
I read a book on the Islamic slave trade where it talked about what they would do in the process is they would cut their testicles off, and then they would take white hot coals and drop them in the hole where the testicles were to cauterize the wound.
Yeah.
Now, many of these people never survived that. And then hopefully if half of them survive or whatever, that's okay. But the rest of them, they just died. They couldn't take it. But that's inhumane. I mean, I can't even
Yeah.
fathom that.
I didn't even know that. But
Yes.
I actually have heard of using heat to like cauterize a wound. I've seen it in movies or whatever, but
Oh yeah,
yeah,
you'll see
yeah,
because that you can do that. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
You
I've
can
heard of that
heat something up,
before.
or if you got a slice of them, you cauterize it. You
Yeah,
see it just like you do with meat. Come on, when you want to put a sear on a steak,
yeah,
you want to sear it to lock in the juices so it don't bleed no more.
yeah, yeah. That's pretty wild, man. Yeah.
I
Stuff
mean,
our ancestors
it's.
been through.
I'm telling you, we went through some shit, and
Yeah,
and we redeemed ourselves, right? We continued to thrive. We were there before, we're there after. Other thing I'll just throw out too is also make sure that people know that all slavery wasn't the same. Right? Because people say, well, Africans had slavery, or it's so old. Yes, it's old now. And now people admit that whites were slaves. Before, like when I was a kid, they never even knew that white people were slaves. The word slave itself come from white people. It's Slav. The word Slav to depict Slavic people, right? In the Caucasus Mountains, right? This is where you get
yeah,
Asian from, right?
yeah,
All that's for white people. And then the Moors themselves, again, because my wife had a little problem. She's like, "Ooh, you like people that enslave people?" I said, "Listen, I understand no slavery was good or what have you, but at this time, when most of the time slavery was slaves were prisoners of war,
prisoners of war. Yeah, but they could work their
right?
way out of it.
Yeah,
So the Native Americans, Iroquois tribe had that where um they would take over a tribe and then they would be like enslaved to the tribe or whatever for like 8 years or something like that, and they would have to do a ceremony where they had to run around naked or whatever. I can't remember. I'm remembering vaguely because I actually
yeah,
learned this in school. And then they became a part of the tribe, and then they weren't no more slaves. They were just a part
right.
of the Iroquois uh nation.
Right. And so that's the difference. And that's when you call it, right? This is when Europeans came over here and started with the Arabs, chattel slavery, right?
Hmm.
The Muslims and Arabs, they were the first to bring in religion into your slavery. And then Europeans took the religion and then also brought in the race aspect of it. Right. And then they brought in the aspect of chattel slavery, which is you're not human. You are just the same as a goat, a hog, a horse, someone's personal property that you can use, abuse, torture, and rape as much as you want. Because you even in the Constitution, right? They had listed us for property reasons for 3/5 of a human being. We
Hmm.
weren't even counted for taxation purposes as a full human being.
Hmm.
So people don't understand that there's differences to this. And so when you talk about the European history, also the biggest difference, it was for life. Right? That's one of the biggest differences in ancient slavery and modern slavery. Modern slavery was for life, and it was passed down to your children.
Hmm.
Listen, at one time, even in America, if you were a slave but you converted to Christianity, you can be out of slavery. This is the early days of slavery. But then the 1600s is when they started flipping it on us. Where it didn't matter if you were Christian or not. You're going to be a slave for life. Your skin color matters. You're going to be a slave for life. All of these things kind of started changing. You start seeing that in the 15 and the 16 and 1700s. And this is when you start having these so-called white intellectuals that try to come up with all these little philosophies of why black people ain't intelligent, right? You seen the movie Django, right?
Yeah.
Jamie Foxx, perfect example, right? There's a scene in there where Leonardo DiCaprio's character talk about, and he's got the 3 divots, the 3 dots in his skull that makes the black person subservient and docile, and well, BS. All that shit is BS. Just
Yeah.
again, come up with all these, fabrications to dehumanize black people. Come on, it's a new day. I'm trying to teach people, get over all. You don't know all. Let's learn the truth. Let's learn
Right.
what's really and what really went on. That's just kind of my passion. Couple quick things I want to show you too before we run out of time.
Yeah.
The quick books I want to show you. This is a great book. Again, I started getting this when I was like 16 years old. This book, you can see my parents gave this to me. I think I was 19 when I got this. I got a box full of books, autographed by my mom and my dad. It says 1990 on this, right? This book is called World's Great Men of Color. There's 2 volumes to this. This is J.A. Rogers. This is the man that really set me up on really learning my history and reading books. I was in a pair teen kind of class where you help struggling teens and stuff like that, and we had like people that were in jail and drug offenders that come in and kind of talk to the youth. And this brother named Mr. Butler came in, and he's the first person who told me, "Hey, did you know that the Queen and King of England, there was actually a black line in their family that they don't talk about?" What? He's like, "Oh, you didn't know there was black kings and queens? You know?" I said, "No, I didn't know." He brought this other book, J.A. Rogers. It's called Sex and Race. Let me see if we can see this. Sex and
Yeah, I can see it.
Race. And it's 3 volumes. Oh, that's messed up. But what I want to show you is I'm gonna show you a couple pictures. You ever heard of Queen Charlotte Sophia?
Yep. That's what I think that's what North Carolina and South Carolina were named after. I definitely know Charlotte. North Carolina was
It's
named
named
after her.
after this black woman who is it's not shown. This black woman right here. Oh, it's not really shown too good.
Yeah, I've seen her
that
picture
woman right there,
before.
light skin.
Yeah, I had a little technical difficulty. My
Yeah,
bad.
you're back. Okay, cool.
But yeah, let's pick up where we left off. You said, and I know you got to head out in like 5 minutes, but you mentioned the Queen of England, Queen of Charlotte. Okay.
Actually, I got till 8:30. I got to 8:30. But yeah, Queen Charlotte. That is the like the great grandmother of King George, right? This is the English line, but people don't know about that. That's a black woman right there. That's a black woman. But again, check out this book, Sex and Race, because it talks about race mixing throughout history. So again, when we talk about again in Spain and Italy and the Carthaginians, the Moors, it deals everything in this 3-volume book. Fantastic book. Another one by, again, this is J.A. Rogers real quick, is Africa's Gift to America. This book is deep. This talks about really everything that in American history, how black people saved America. Like a lot of people don't know that the sugar, molasses, right? Rum, and then cotton,
really the cotton
is what
gin,
really saved America.
because the slaves hated
This
cotton,
is where
but
we
when
really
the cotton gin came out, that made it worse because now there was an efficiency with it, and my I'm from the South, so I remember like cotton, right? Like it actually has a lot of thorns in it, so you picking it, and it's like I'm sure a lot
I
of
was gonna
those
say
slaves
that.
lost feelings in their fingertips from picking it.
Absolutely. Right. And real thick too, because you're getting pricked time after time after time after time. And you develop calluses and thick skin and stuff like that. And it's horrible. But people, the cotton, I mean, again, they talk about that in this book. The whole thing, like how cotton, molasses, sugar, all of that saved America. Shit, people know about, listen, you should know about the Caribbean, how that was the breeding grounds, the breaking in service. They literally had where they broke black people to break us down, break our spirit in front of women. And I'm not even gonna get into some of the
Buck breaking.
historical, just nasty, disgusting
Yeah.
things that they
Yeah.
did, but they wanted to break that buck,
Yeah.
take that fight and make that black man an example out of, right? And then what it did is scared black women to be scared for their black boys. So then you start
Mm-hmm.
trying to make your boys a little bit more dominant, or submissive, because you don't want them to be so brave and so brash. You want to stand up to them, right? So you want to push them back a little bit. And then you got to train your girls, right? How to be, in their place, so to say, right?
Yeah. It was.
Bow down to these white people.
Yeah. The Willie
Come on.
Lynch papers. Yeah. Kind of. Yeah.
It's a whole, don't even get it started. So the whole thing. And people, regardless if they say that I was real or not, and I do have the papers, the Willie Lynch papers. Again, it's debated if that was a real paper or not. I always grew up saying it was, but now they're saying, well, maybe it wasn't. It doesn't matter, because
Mm-hmm.
the philosophy behind that was something that was still true, that still happened. And so that's what I really focus on, regardless if there was really a guy by the name of Willie Lynch who really did write these papers, the techniques that was written about, or techniques that were used on black people. And that is definitely something that we need to acknowledge and talk about, because it's how we were broken down. And you still see things like that, to this day, trying to put, especially with Trump, trying to put black people in a place, right? Erase our history. Like, I don't know why or how he thinks, DEI, right, or less qualified when it comes to Tuskegee Airmen. Right? These are black expert fighter pilots who never lost a ship in combat. They were getting their asses kicked by these white Germans, right? Blowing up these bomber ships, couldn't make it over there. They was killing them. They had to call the black guys in. Again, this is why the black more. And when you get knowledge, you got to come to the black more. They came in, and again, for the rest of the war, never lost a ship to enemy fighting. Never did. That is excellence. That's not, are you not qualified, less qualified? That's overqualified, which is, again, what black people always have to do anyways in this country. I was raised that we gotta be twice as good to get half as far. Right? Trump is taking down, literally took down the training videos of a Tuskegee Airman to the Air Force, right? To the military. They used to be in the training videos. Now they're gonna take all that.
Trump, where you really got to be careful about the energy you invite in. You know what I'm saying? So, and the sad thing is that a lot of times, depending on who you are or how things are structured around you, you may not even feel that pain of what you're saying, but the people around you will. So definitely a lesson there. Yeah, yeah. So
Absolutely.
the name Blackmore,
Yep.
one of my close friends
Absolutely.
who's Indian, his brother was telling me, and I'm like, man, I love chai tea. I love chai tea. He's like, Corey, that's just like saying tea twice, because chai is tea. You know what I'm saying? And so when I look at the Blackmore, I'm like, you don't really have to say more, because more is it's black. Yeah, you don't have to say black, but yeah, give us a breakdown of
You
the
don't have to say
name,
black.
what it stands for, the symbol of the and all that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I came up with the name The Blackmore, right? And literally all this stuff really came to me in a few different dreams. And I had to make some hand sketches at night. I swear to God, I still have them when I developed the whole logo and stuff. But where the whole name, the concept comes from is I use the name The Blackmore because, first off, I want to make sure that people understand who I'm talking
They
about.
were
Because you
Arab.
still have people who will say, well, the Moors, they weren't all black. They were Muslim. They come from North Africa, which is, mixed, and they were Berbers. And I want to make sure that we make no distinction of who we're talking about. Just like when we talk about ancient Egyptian pharaohs, right? People think that they think of Elizabeth Taylor, Charlton Heston, some of the white people. So that's why sometimes you see, black pharaohs, just to make sure. So the name, the Blackmore, I want to make sure people know I'm talking about black people. I'm talking about General Tariq, who crossed over the Alps 711, right? There was a black man. These are the people that brought that education and higher learning to Europe. So with my brand, with my company, if you want to come and learn some knowledge, some education, some upliftment, again, you got to come to the black people to get that information. And so that's kind of where the concept of the name, the Black Moor, came from. Just like the Moors brought Europe out of the Dark Ages, I'm trying to bring people out of the dark ages in 2025. And then the Ankh, right? This is not a Moorish symbol. This is an ancient Kemetic symbol, right? So thousands of years before there was any Christian cross, you'll see this symbol. This is an Ankh. An Ankh is a representation. It's a key to life. It's God-giving. So anytime you see this over 10,000 years on Egyptian walls, what have you, you know that that is depicting something about giving life, God giving life into something, right? It's also, for me, this gives me protection. I feel like I'm protected by God, right? In the things that I say, in my really wanting to uplift and motivate people, which is really my goal in life, to educate, motivate, and uplift Black people worldwide and everyone who loves us, regardless of race, religion, or nationality. I tell people all the time, if you love Black people, then the Black More is a platform for you. Right now, my goal is to really start putting out more YouTube videos and some other stuff. I'm an old dad, and when I'm just getting into social media stuff or whatever. But
Yeah.
you know, I want to be on TikTok. I want to do all that kind of stuff, right? But I want to bring this passion, this information, this history to people. We were talking about, you know, the Garden of Eden earlier. Again, the name Africa, that ain't what we call the motherland. Like, if you go look up what the real name, what Africans called Africa, it's called Akibulan. Alkebulan. Akibulan means the Garden of Eden. This is from us, but we still use all these European names: Africa, Egypt, right? Again, you can look at all the names. You'll learn about all the actual true names. Again, in Black Man of the Nile, it'll break down all these names. Tanisi, right? For all these names that we use. So again, that's kind of the concept of the Black More, bringing that information, the higher learning, the education, the uplifting, the motivation, and anything dealing with Black people throughout history, man, from creation of humanity to the current day. You know, this is what I want to die doing, trying to help educate and uplift Black people, man, to the day I die. If I do this and die, if I was to die right now, I'd die a happy man. Because this is my passion for the rest of my life. Right. And if you want to come at me sideways, now I have the knowledge to say, well, let's talk about it. I didn't even have to get excited. I sit back and let you talk yourself into a problem. And okay, well, let's talk about it. And then say, go look it up. And I always tell people, don't believe what I'm saying because I'm saying it. Go look it up. Everything I'm talking about, you can go see. They're not going to teach you in school, but if you look it up on your own, the information.
And the one thing also too I want to say is, like, I want everybody to take from this is that, you know, loving your culture doesn't mean you hate another culture, right? And in fact is fact. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want nobody to take this conversation as, oh, we're talking down or demeaning like white people, right? We're just speaking facts. The black woman, the first person on earth,
just speaking facts,
first tribe, first clan, whatever. They were of African descent. They started in Africa. I love how you just pulled. We just wanted to show like how parts of history have been used against us by our conquerors, right? Of our ancestors, right? So that, you know, because again, reason why I love history is that history, in the words of Mark Twain that I use sparingly, history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. And so if you look at what a lot of stuff and things that Trump is doing, there's also been other people who've done what he's done in the past, right? He moves a lot like a dictator, right? So just think of the worst dictators potentially. Like even me, when I think of Trump, I think of Andrew Jackson with some of the stuff he said and some of the ways he carries himself. And that's why I love history, because it gives us it's like looking at a mirror into the potential futures of what could happen if we go down different paths, right? So, you know, again, you know, I don't want nobody to take this interview and saying, oh, we hate white people. I did my genealogy. I got white in me. And again, to your point, and to your point, there's no really such thing as race.
I'm 8% German.
Something that's been used to, you know, I major in economics. So the lens that I look at things is, you know, things are, the things that have been created against us and or even for us have kind of boiled down to allocation of resources, right? So if I can draw a line in the sand and say, you're on this side and I'm on this side,
Absolutely.
and you're less than, then that makes it easier for me to control the resources to get them to my people or to enforce my rule, right? So, but yeah.
Which is what you see historically to happen to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
When you see, right, at the Nicene Conference, where they went in and they literally carved up Africa. They didn't care about tribal lines or cultural lines or ethnic lines. They just went in and carved it up like a pizza, however they wanted it, like a jigsaw. Not even a pizza. Pizza's even. So I would say more like a jigsaw puzzle. Anywhere they wanted to come in and take the resources, control the resources, right? And then hide the truth, right? And why I say hide the truth is because everybody's heard of Hitler, right? And again, I'm just in facts. Just facts.
And
right? Everybody's heard of Hitler.
wasn't he Jewish himself?
How bad he was to Jewish people, right? But let's not.
I've heard that. I don't know how true it is. But
I don't know, but I heard he. Right. Yeah. I don't know. I've heard kind of stuff like that years ago, but I never really researched it. Only because my whole thing is, as bad as Hitler is, and we all know a Hitler, right? And I think the only reason we even know about how bad he was, right? Obviously, it's documented stuff he did, and it was horrible. But he did stuff to other Europeans, right? Now, again, of course, he didn't like gay people, didn't like black people, what have you. But when we're talking about where he started in Europe, it was Europe against Europeans against other Europeans.
My God, he was the worst.
Now, here's a name. You ever heard of King Leopold?
Yeah.
Okay, so good for you. Most people who are going to look at this, they don't know about King Leopold.
Yeah.
King Leopold murdered 20 million Africans. Was cutting off their arms if they didn't have enough of rubber and gold and stuff. Just horrible. He made Hitler look like a Boy Scout, right? But we don't know about that because the torture and the abuse was by a European upon Africans, and so because
he was the worst.
Africans,
and I haven't been to. So Leopold, which country was it? Belgium? No. But what European country was he from though?
Congo.
Was it Dutch? I don't know. I think
he was. I believe it was Dutch.
Yeah,
I think it was. I can't remember. Look that up real quick. Where was King Leopold?
Belgium. Yep. So I've never been to Belgium. But from what I heard is that they still sell pieces of candy that emulate pieces of like black bodies. I don't know how true it is, but I definitely heard it. And if y'all don't believe me, definitely research that. But yeah, Leopold. And then it's kind of ironic because the Belgian crown knew how bad he was, but then something happened, and then they said we're taking Leopold out of Belgium, and then they took over the Congo, and it was just like, but he came there for your crown, and you knew what he was doing the whole time. Pretty.
And they just gave him that African land to do whatever he wanted. They gave him carte blanche. Do whatever you want to anybody out there. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. Hey, before we get out of here, one other quick thing. You ever heard of, man, why did I just draw a blank? What is her name? Oh, man, I can't believe I just went blank on it. There's a historian. She's actually an educator. Jane Elliott, that's her name. You ever heard of Jane Elliott? Jane Elliott, boy, this is an ally. A white woman, been doing this for 40 years, educating people, again, that there's no real concept called race. There's no such thing as race. Race is a social construct. She started 40 years ago with a test that she did it's called green eyes, brown eyes. And she would make brown eyes people be the people that were dominated against, and green eyed people, or blue eyed people, the dominant people. And then she'd switch it, right? And deal with it just like it was race and see how these people felt about it. I mean, this stuff is legendary. But one thing she talks about, she also promotes this book by Anthony T. Browder. Highly, man, if you get this book first, if you're going to order one book, order this book, Now Valley Contribution to civilization. This is going to break down a lot of ancient African history and stuff like that. So I get this book and then Self-Destruction of the Black Civilization. But Jane Elliott talks about that, you know, and is advising people, look, people don't know about racism, the contribution of the whole Nile Valley contribution, that it was a whole system, you know, 4,100 miles long.
Mhm.
And Jane Elliott is one of those allies that's always been with us, right? Another one I'm always talking about that will be on my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah,
is
he got sentenced to death
John
for
Brown.
robbing a
You ever
federal
heard of
bank.
John
He was a
Brown?
famous abolitionist. Is that the one you talking about? Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. But it wasn't a bank. Here's what it is. John Brown was a white man who hated slavery so much. He said it was an abomination against God, and said God had spoken to him that he's going to free his black brothers. Now, this is in the 1800s. He's going to free his black brothers. So him, his sons, right? These are white guys who wanted to free black people. And what they did is they stormed Harper's Ferry,
Okay, that's what.
which is an
Okay,
armory.
okay, yeah.
They keep all the guns in Virginia. So he was going to take all the guns, and then he was just going to march from plantation to plantation, freeing black people and handing out guns, and let's go. The plan kind of fell apart. Somebody snitched on him.
Yeah.
You'll see that in history. We always got one
Yeah.
scared black person that ends up getting scared and got to go snitch, and snitched on him. And they brought out the cavalry, the military, whatever. And they ended up catching him and getting him at, you know, Harper's Ferry, whatever. But the thing about this is he's so cold, they hung him, right? But he went to the gallows. Cool, calm, and collected. And he basically like, listen, mix my blood with the blood of my black brothers. I want to go just like them. Because you know what? In this abomination of what we're doing, this ain't godly work, right? Enslavement, that's all wrong. He said, you know what? I gladly mix my blood with my brother. And they hung him, right? But that's a true ally. That's a white. We need more white people that's like, listen, the shit that's happening to black people is not right. Right? We need more people to stand up of all races, all colors, because right is right, wrong is wrong. And then we got Trump in the office right now who he's anti-black. He wants to get rid of anything that has to do with positivity, promoting black people or our history. He wants to erase
But it's all temporary though. You know what
starting
I'm
with the
saying?
military.
So, I mean,
and so, you know, here's the scary part though. Even though he won't be there,
yeah.
I think that there's so many people that still believe in his type of philosophy. That's how I could not believe that this man got elected twice. I didn't think at first I didn't think any woman would vote for him, being convicted of all those felonies, right? And then talking about grabbing somebody.
It also makes sense to me why he got reelected. So people who are married or in a relationship tend to vote on the same lines, right? And women tend to vote on the same lines in their man and vice versa. I read an article about this, right? So I think a part of the reason why people voted for him is because of he actually does a really good job of emitting power. Like if you're not used to seeing like a powerful person, you would think he's very powerful. He's very like stereotypical boyish. It's like what's been my issue throughout my sales career. People have been like, Corey, you so laid back. I don't think you talk too, you don't talk enough. And it's like most people just want to hear themselves talk. So why if I'm trying to sell them something, I need you to talk your way until write me that check, right? But with Trump, I think that he represents power. He's a powerful white man, right? And so we tend to, if you just strip away the ideals or the beliefs of whoever you look up to, if they look like you kind of like are more likely to vote for them. And I think that's what happened, right? And it's like I think that's why he got in, but also too the Democrats just really screwed up with the way they did things. Excuse me, where they hid Biden's sickness. They should have brought that forward a lot sooner. And I think they shot. Yeah. Yeah, but I also just think that
other than the quick days or whatever
as a whole, as a society, we aren't we're not there yet with being led by a woman. You know, and I think that's a part of at the cusp of it, right?
I agree.
Like,
and that's
but
horrible.
the crazy thing now, and I tell people this was very interesting. If you look at the stats, I think it was like 90 something percent of white women and men voted for Trump. A majority of Hispanics voted for him. I think 7% of black people voted for Trump. But when you look at these protests that are happening now, what's so interesting is, right, even if, let's say there's like 1 million people out protesting, right? And let's say to keep the numbers nice, right? Let's cut
Mm-hmm.
that down in the middle. Out of those 1 million people, right? Half of that 1 million people who are at those protests who are white or Hispanic, they voted for Trump. And what I find very interesting is that I look on TikTok and there's some stories I advise you and let your son and your kids help you go on TikTok and find this. But you'll see people who say my abuelo, grandmother got deported back, but I voted for Trump. And it's just like, first off, why are you telling us that you voted for Trump? And then I actually did an interview
Yeah. Yeah.
with he's a former trainer. He used to train NFL athletes. He's actually Mexican, and he actually said that a lot of his Mexican relatives were, I think, a second, third generation from Mexico. They don't even speak Spanish because they wanted to assimilate into American culture. And so this is not a general statement I'm making, but a lot of Hispanics who are second and third generation are like, oh, I'm good. They the ones who aren't from here or didn't grow up here, I was born here, so I'm good. So it's
Right.
very, in a weird way.
I think what you're saying though is that a lot of
But
people are
but
thinking it's
but
their
that's
problem.
but
It's
that's
not my
but that's
problem.
the
And now
but
on these
that's the thing they
protests,
said
now you
too.
see
They were
people saying,
like,
"Oh
I didn't
shit,
think he would
it's
do this to
affecting me
me.
now."
And it's like, oh, it's like so coded what they're really saying. Like you got to listen to what they're not saying. I'm white or I'm Hispanic. I thought he was just going to harm
Yep.
black people.
Yep.
Or I'm a male. I thought he ain't never say nothing crazy about me.
Yep.
He says that about women. But now your food stamps are
Right.
gone. Like
Right.
there was a woman who
Right.
lost her food stamps because of what Trump did, and her family doesn't even want to help her pay for stuff, and she's mad at her family for that. And they're like, "But you voted for this man. You voted for this man." And it's I actually think that Trump being
Yeah.
president is a blessing in disguise, because I think this is the first time that my generation is really, in younger generation, the Zennials are really feeling the negative impact of making the wrong vote collectively, right? I didn't vote for Trump, but we as a country voted for
Yeah.
Trump.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think now what we're going to see, and you
Yep.
seeing it with the
Sure
midterms that
did.
are happening here in Texas, all the positions that were up for vote are being flipped Democrat. And so I actually think potentially, hopefully I can make a bet on this, but I think after Trump, I think the Senate, the House of Representatives, the only area of the government that won't completely flip blue is going to be the judges. A lot of the federal judges are already Democrat leaning, but I think the Senate, the House of Representatives, obviously the executive branch, I think those are going to be flipped blue, which I'm also kind of worried about. Yeah,
I hope it's
I think
before he
because
can get out of office
House
because
of
we have the
Representatives,
midterms
they're
coming
only
up.
in there for like a year or something like that, or 2 years. 2 years, yeah. So they spend 1 year doing quote unquote real work, but then the next year they got a
2 years.
campaign. So yeah, I do think that's going to get flipped beforehand, but I also, I'm really big in the stock market. And whenever you have one party ruling every facet of government, that's not really good for the stock market. It's actually better to have a Democratic president and then a Republican control Congress. That tends to be like the perfect mix for the stock market, right? Because you need a yin and a yang. You need checks and balances, right? But I
Checks
mean,
and balances.
hey man, we got ourselves into it. I tell people, man, it's just, you got to invest, man. It's because this working class is going away. That's a whole nother subject. But yeah, man.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that all of this was planned out though. Nobody thought he was gonna really do it. But I remember telling people, YouTube, my
And
platform, everything, Project 2025 is real.
he said it was
Everything
a
that they
lie.
came through in that playbook, that 1,000-page playbook, they ended up doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, He said he was gonna do it.
Yeah.
Right? I'm in the Department of Education. I mean, he's doing everything. He's exactly was all
Yeah.
in there, and everybody was like,
Yeah.
no, he ain't really doing that yet. Okay. You can see right there. And people got surprised when SNAP benefits, because again,
Yeah.
the stereotype is that black people are on welfare. Right? Oh, all the money for welfare that's spent on black people who don't want to work, lazy, got 12 kids with 14 different baby daddies, all this.
I mean,
Listen, the majority of people, most of that money
Africans, we're
goes to white
African Americans, Africans, whatever. We 14% of the population. How can we be using most of the benefit? Like there's small towns whose economies have effectively been like from SNAP benefits being gone. Like Walmart, when Walmart says in their earnings reports, we got a problem. Who's mainly buying Walmart's product? It ain't
Right.
us. It's more.
Right.
It's the majority Hispanics, right? Like
Yeah.
it's crazy. So
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel bad for the people who are being impacted by Trump who didn't vote for him or didn't have a say so. Those are the ones I feel sorry for. But the ones, you know, who voted for Trump, it's kind of hard for me to feel bad for them. You know what I mean? Like it's like, you know, come on now, smarten up. Like this is not a
Hey,
even though politics is a popularity contest,
come on.
you shouldn't have voted for him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, listen,
The devil's in the
get the devil you
detail.
voted for.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I feel bad for you because I'm a humanistic person.
Yeah.
Right. And I believe in humanity and my love
Yeah.
for all races.
Yeah,
and all
I
people,
feel bad
you know,
for
all of
people
that.
on a
But
humanistic basis,
again,
but it's hard for
now
me to
you
feel bad when you voted for him and then you're on TV complaining, crying about him getting your people deported. Like he told you what he was going to do.
exactly.
He told you.
Right. He told you,
I
right?
like that.
The man lies like a rug, as my wife would say. He makes it fashionable to lie now. Like you don't even have to tell the truth no more. Right? Listen, what other
Yeah.
president defames or body shames people? Like what? Like who makes fun of mentally handicapped people?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who calls women piggies, fatzos, and stuff like just
Yeah.
interviewing people? Like what president does that? Like he's a disgrace, man. I think he's the worst. He's definitely the worst president I feel in my lifetime, but he might be the worst president ever. Just he doesn't even try to be presidential. That's
Yeah.
because again, I feel he really wants to be a king. He wants to be
Yeah. Yeah. He definitely moves like a dictator.
you know, but that's my personal opinion.
the checks and balances that we have, and it's ironic because I forgot what there was a in the Constitution there was a amendment that was made to prevent dang what's this called, electoral votes, right? So electoral votes were put in place in case the quote unquote people made a bad decision, but he got those too.
Not only that the people made a bad decision, they didn't
Yeah.
believe that the people would be educated enough to make the right decision. So they said, look, you vote and then we'll come in and cast a vote for everybody. That's why the electoral system is in place. Because they literally didn't think that the people were educated enough to make the right decision. Of course, that decision wanted to be what they wanted it to be. But don't get me started on that, man.
I know you gotta go. It's your curfew.
This shit is crazy, but
anyway,
man, what time is it?
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah, I'm late. Man, but it's a pleasure, man. I appreciate
this was fun.
You know, taking the time to even speak with me, man.
Yeah, you definitely put me on game with some stuff I need to research.
But
yeah, one thing I mentioned earlier is called Belgian handshake chocolates. Really look that up. Pretty crazy. Yeah. So any last words before we head out?
Really? Okay. Any last words? Man, just keep hope alive. Keep striving. You know, each one teach one. Learn your history, and they can't take our history from us. I don't care what they say. They can't stop me from teaching this. I'm gonna teach. I don't care if it's at a college level or just, you know, person to person. This is history that we all need to know and that the whole world needs to know, right? Because it's all to me, it's all backwards right now. But you know, it is what it is. You know. We got to keep striving, man, and keep pushing forward, and just trying to be positive. And I got here it is. 2 things, man.
Yep.
Always trust in God. Number 2, if you are particularly if you're Christian, I consider myself a Christian. That means you gotta walk and act like Christ like, right? You gotta do what things that Christ talked about. Third thing, love thy neighbor. Love thy neighbor. Right? That's in the Bible. It didn't say if you illegal, not love the foreigner. It says in the Bible, love the foreigner like your own children, your own family. Right? Last thing I'll say, you should not be afraid of your president. If you're scared to speak out about what's wrong, right? You just seen all the military, right? If somebody gives you illegal orders, it's your duty to resist that. You got to speak up. And if you're afraid to speak up and tell the truth because you're afraid of your president, that's a bigger problem we got, people.
I'm protected by the blood of Jesus. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, right.
Every day, right over my heart, baby. And I got 12-inch big symbol on the back of my shirts and hoodies, man, so you can see.
Hey, Mr. OJ, the black Moore, thanks for the opportunity, man. Like I said, you know,
all right, brother.
you're one of the few people that I still keep in contact with from my Yelp days. So when I saw you on Facebook writing your post, I was like, yeah, I gotta, because I love Black history. You know what I'm saying? Black history, African history. This, so, but yeah, so y'all check them out. We gonna post the links to the video or to your channel, and at the bottom.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. I'm on YouTube. I got a few videos on that. Really, what I do most of the stuff really is on Facebook, right?
You need to post most of your
Instagram,
stuff on
that's
YouTube
all the young folks is
because YouTube
and TikTok. And
I know
all
you're
that.
not doing it for the money, but it's easier to monetize on YouTube. And then also, obviously, you got Patreon. There's a platform called Fanbase, started by Isaac. I forgot his last name, but it's basically like Patreon where you. Okay. Yep. Yeah.
Isaac Hayes Jr.
So I'm actually in the process of creating.
Isaac Hayes Jr.
already have a Patreon, but I need to create a fan base too because I just want to support him. As a Black man. Also create your stuff there. But yeah, YouTube pays the best.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing.
But yeah, I basically link out my content or post snippets on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. I need to get Threads too, but yeah, let's keep.
Let me add one quick thing. Anybody who hits me up on Facebook, right? The Facebook platform is that platform is for anybody. If you got any positivity, information, education, motivation regarding Black people, you can post that on the Black More on the Facebook page. The only thing you do have to do is just answer the questions. Like the required questions, no foolishness on my page, and you ain't gonna see no world star Black people fighting and none of that on my page. Just uplifting, positive, or historical educational stuff. And that's for everybody to add whatever you want to share with the rest of the world, whatever your perspectives is on positivity and Blackness, no matter where you are, in Africa, here, the Caribbean, or wherever. So we want to hear your content. We want to hear your voice. Your voices. We want you to share the world or share with the world your voice. Your voice, we want to hear it. And the Black More is a place to do it, baby. All right. All right.